Cormac McCarthy, he achieved 12 novels in his lifetime, some of which are considered some of the best writings in the past decades. And oddly enough, right at the end of Cormac McCarthy's life, he wrote 3 of his most popular novels. Looking at Cormac McCarthy, the way he talks, he holds his hands, he expresses his words, he talks about writing, how he feels about it. It's obvious that he's a person that viewed life very different. He studied conversation, he studied the way people moved, the way they thought, the way they looked at elements in their own life and around them. He was able to take stories and visualize them the way people can never imagine. There's many different parts of his life that are very interesting, especially the last decade of his own life, where he was busier than ever. He became very popular. He found different moments of popularity in his own life, but essentially the last 10 years of his life came with many gold bars and jewels of life when Hollywood came knocking. But Cormac McCarthy was a very gentle soul, soft-spoken. Even just a simple sentence from him was the most artistic one you've ever heard. But his writing was vicious, violent, dark, the worst elements of human nature one could think of. Blood Meridian is considered one of the most violent books ever written. The last moments of his career, he published novels such as No Country for Old Men, The Road, which both were made into Hollywood movies, starring huge actors. It tells us that life takes many different turns and truly is never over at any stage of it when you're breathing. Careers have ups and downs, and Cormac McCarthy was just a different kind of author. He wasn't trying to write the most books or make records with it, something like a Stephen King. His novels aren't full of fat. They're straight to the point of emotion, sights, wonders, elements that people are dealing with at that very moment. Humans breaking the rules of day-to-day society, or society collapsing in on itself. From stories of blood to homicidal maniacs and father bonds of the most strongest love possible a human can offer. This is the short story of Cormac McCarthy. Cormac McCarthy was married 3 times in his life, and for a huge majority of his life, he was plumb broke. Literally where Cormac McCarthy would say he had nothing, not even 2 nickels to rub together. But in that moment too, he had already written many great books. McCarthy was so private and such a shy person that he said, even at his worst, when times were the roughest financially, he would receive offers just for simply him showing up somewhere and giving a lecture for no more than an hour, with essentially blank checks behind them. But Cormac wouldn't go. It wasn't his thing, it wasn't his style. He's one of the few authors that didn't live a big lifestyle, and probably one of the most private. He says that he likes things to make life comfortable, but doesn't take advantage of it. Nice things are nice, but they simply just help. That's all. It's little tidbits of information like that let you know who Cormac McCarthy was. He was a true artist. He couldn't be bought with blank checks. Cormac McCarthy's first time of hitting mainstream media with one of his novels came in 1992 when he wrote All of the Pretty Horses. Cormac McCarthy at that time was already 58 years old. He had written other books, short stories, but nothing that found much success. Up until that moment, Cormac McCarthy was considered a failed writer. His other novels had sold 5,000 copies or less, and really never made him any money. His passion was writing. Imagine living a life into your late 50s looking for that moment, looking for acceptance, wondering if you'll ever do something that's worthwhile with something that you love, but then looking for a piece of you to be accepted into this world that you know you're worthy to be in. How many people chase a passion late, very late into their life? But that's what Cormac McCarthy did. And when All the Pretty Ponies came out in 1992, people started to look at his past novels, and they realized he had been overlooked for decades. For the reasons no one really knows, Cormac seems somewhat hard to live with. A true artist, hard to deal with, which is nothing new in that world. Cormac had 3 wives throughout his life, his last one ending in 2006. But even with that, Cormac McCarthy was still very a private person, with not much even still to this day being known about his private life. We do know that Cormac had 2 sons, one from his first marriage and one from his 3rd marriage. There's really only one big interview that Cormac McCarthy really ever did where he seems comfortable and open. It was with Oprah. Funny enough, The Road one of Cormac McCarthy's last big novels that went to Hollywood as well, grabbed the attention of Oprah, putting the novel in her book club. Cormac said in that interview that one of his biggest fears in life that he struggled with for a long time was that he would be forced to have a regular job, a 9 to 5. It put fear in him to keep going. He said it's not that he was lazy, it's just not what he wanted. He knew it wasn't for him, but he said no matter how rough things got, something always would randomly appear to help him financially. Someone would help him, or some totally unforeseen thing would occur to help him get along to the next chapter in his life. McCarthy's books are still considered to this day to be a very special small amount of writings in the world of novels. Blood Meridian, still to this day by many being called one of the best westerns ever written, and still selling thousands of copies every year. The last moments of Cormac McCarthy's life, he knew he was at the end of it, and he knew he wanted to go out big. He made it a personal mission to finish up a book that he had been writing for decades. He finished the first part of the book and released it, and then a year later released part 2 of it. They weren't his biggest books ever released, but they were his last. We know that the very last project that Cormac McCarthy was working on was a screenplay of Blood Meridian, and no doubt it would have been huge, bringing him back to the novel that was really his bread and butter, keeping him going. Not too many authors write 2 novels back to back that explode, both being made big movies, but that's exactly what Cormac did. He wrote No Country for Old Men and The Road, released a year apart from one another. For someone at his age, and in this length of time, already being a well-known writer, coming out with 2 monstrous books that captivate people just by novels themselves, but also being ate up by Hollywood. No Country for Old Men itself, winning 4 Academy Awards for the movie adaptation of the book, and still today, a film that gets talked about every year. Not too many authors can say they've done this. For someone whose career started so hard and lasted so long in the dumps, to the last couple of decades, finding extreme success. Some people may not believe it if it was a fantasy story itself. In the last moments of Cormac McCarthy's life, he's secluded. Even up to his death, he was writing. It's said that his little office where he would write was just full of papers, notebooks, drawings. His brain was still shooting out ideas. But to the middle of May, to right in the beginnings of June of 2023, Cormac, now 89 years old, found himself isolated, much like he liked and wanted, but his body had given up on him. He was in his home in New Mexico, living there for decades. He was accompanied by his side, his 2 sons, and his former ex-wife, Jennifer. Cormac McCarthy died on June 13th of complications of prostate cancer that had battled him down, along with dealing with leukemia as well. He was frail, skinny, his body had been drained of all life. But in the end, when Cormac McCarthy died at his home, he told his loved ones that were with him by his side at that moment that he had regrets. Maybe he was too isolated. In his last years alive, Cormac McCarthy started to spend money. He bought cars that he liked, gadgets and gadgets, and that's okay. His art made him wealthy. Cormac McCarthy should be studied for one of the most famous and daring novelists in the past decades that we were lucky enough to have. His books are truly writings of art, and they'll stand the test of time, no doubt. He's a man that if he could have lived to be 200 years old, he still would have been writing to this day and coming out with great writings. Cormac McCarthy was the life of a dream come true. He didn't mind waiting on his dream of being a writer that was well known and could live off of it. He could have just given up, but if he didn't suffer in those years of looking for more, it may not have built him into the author that he came to be, giving us amazing stories of sacrifice that will last for future readers. He's a great lighthouse to have when looking to keep going, no matter how long it takes for your dreams to come true. A dream can take a lifetime, but in that dream, the art can last forever. This is what Cormac McCarthy achieved in his own writings. Long live the memory of Cormac McCarthy, the author we only get once in a generation.